All right, today we are going to be taking some notes on the legislative branch of our government. As you will recall, hopefully, from our introductory section on the Constitution, the legislative branch makes the laws for our country. And the part of the Constitution that gives the legislative branch these powers is Article 1 of the Constitution. So, again, if you remember, the beginning part of the Constitution is called the Preamble, where it outlines the goals for our government. And then right after that is the very first section called Article 1. And Article 1 lays out the job of Congress, the legislative branch, and how they can go about making and writing the laws for our country. So this graphic organizer should look familiar to you. We took notes using this organizer a week or two ago. We're going to focus in again on the legislative branch, which is right here, this section of the graphic organizer. The Capitol building is where Congress, the legislative branch, meets to write the laws for our country. Here's an inside look of what Congress actually looks like when there's people meeting. Very official looking, as you can see. And again, you'll recall from our notes a while back that the legislative branch is made up of Congress, which is bicameral, meaning it is split into two parts, the House of Representatives and the Senate. Sometimes I'll refer to the House of Representatives simply as the House for short, and then the Senate. So the House and the Senate are the two parts of Congress. So there are specific requirements for how people can go about being elected to Congress, and the requirements are different depending on which part of Congress that they're in. So we're going to start with the House of Representatives. So in the House of Representatives, people elected to those seats are elected through a popular vote, meaning the person with the most votes wins the seat. Simple as that. The number of representatives that a state gets in Congress is based on population. So the more people that a state has, the more representatives they will have in Congress. So Illinois is a pretty large state population-wise. We have 18 people that represent us in the House and Congress. If you think of a state like Wyoming or Montana, though, where it maybe is really big geographically, whoops, don't know what happened there, is really big geographically, it doesn't have a lot of people that live in those states, so they don't have many representatives in Congress. So again, it's based on the population of a state, how many representatives they get. So if you take a look at this map here, let me just make sure I'm still recording. Okay, I am. So if you take a look at this map here, this is our state, and this is how the districts are broken down for our representatives. So I live in the 18th district here. So one person represents this entire bluish area for the 18th district of Illinois in Congress. One person represents this green area for the 13th district, and so on and so forth. So you can see these districts are really odd. They are broken down in really weird ways. You can see the districts are smaller up here in the Chicago area, but that's because there's more people. It's more heavily populated up in that area. So that's what Illinois looks like. That's how our 18 representatives are divided across our state. So once elected to the House of Representatives, the term of office is just 2 years. So they're up for re-election every 2 years. And to run, you must be a U.S. citizen for at least 7 years. So you don't have to have been born in the United States, but you do have to have gone through the citizenship process and lived in the U.S. and been a citizen for at least 7 years. The minimum age to become a representative is 25 years old. And also, a representative must live not only in the state that they represent, but also in the district they represent. So going back to that map here, if someone wants to represent the 15th district here, they have to live in the district. They can't live over here in the 13th district and say, hey, I'm going to run over here. They've got to live within the district, within the state that they want to represent. Okay. Moving on to the Senate, the other side of Congress. The Senate requirements are a little bit more difficult. So they are elected through a popular vote as well. So same thing as the House, it's just the person with the most votes wins. but it's a little different in that every state gets 2 senators. So it's not based on population, just no matter what, every state has 2 senators that represents their entire state. It's not broken down into little districts like the representatives are. A senator's term of office is 6 years long, so longer than a representative. And to be a senator, one must be a U.S. citizen for at least 9 years, so 2 years longer than the House requirement. The minimum age is 30, and they must live in the state they represent. So again, if there's a senator seat open in Illinois, you have to live in Illinois to run for it. You can't live in Indiana and run for a seat in Illinois. So each side of Congress kind of has a person that leads them called their presiding officers. So in the Senate, it's always the vice president, and right now that is Mike Pence. There's a picture of him. And then in the House, this is elected by the people within the House. They elect their Speaker of the House to be their leader, and right now that person is Paul Ryan. So each side of Congress has special powers that are laid out for them in the Constitution. So we're going to start on the side of the House of Representatives. They have a special role in that all bills dealing with money have to start out in the House. They don't ever start out in the Senate. It will always start in the House if it's a bill dealing with revenue. The House can make laws. The House can declare war. And the House is in charge of bringing impeachment charges on federal officials. So if a federal official has done something wrong or illegal, it would be the House's job to bring charges against them. They choose their Speaker of the House, like I said a little bit ago. And they also choose the president if there's no majority in the Electoral College, which we'll talk more about when we talk about the executive branch and how the president gets elected. Over on the Senate side, these are their special powers that they have given to them from the Constitution. The Senate is in charge of confirming or approving presidential appointments. So there are some jobs in our government where the president gets to pick who they want to do that job. And once they've picked who they want, the Senate has to confirm it. They go through this whole process of approving that person to make sure they're the right fit for that job. Also, the Senate ratifies or approves treaties with foreign countries. They make laws and declare war just like the House. And then if there were to be an impeachment trial, the Senate acts as the jury. So they hear the trial and decide the outcome on federal officials if they've done something wrong. And then also the Senate chooses a VP if there's no majority in the Electoral College. And again, that's something we'll talk more about when we get to the executive branch. So here is the makeup political party-wise of Congress. This is kind of what it looks like pre-election and post-election. So as you guys know, we just had a midterm election last week. So if you look at the bottom half here where it says pre-election, this is currently what Congress looks like. So you can see the Senate has 100 seats total because every state has 2 senators and we have 50 states. So 2 times 50 is 100. So right now you can see the amount of Democrats that are in the Senate. The 2 gray ones mean third-party vacancies or uncalled. And then you can see how many Republicans there are. And then same thing over here in the House. Again, down here is the current one. There are 435 total seats. 186 of them are Democrats. 246 are Republican. So then in January, when the new Congress takes effect based on the elections that we just had last week, the new Congress will be this top part. So you can see there are a few more Democrats in the Senate in January, and also come January, there will be a few more Democrats in the House. So some changes coming up for Congress here. Okay, so again, Congress's main job is to write the laws for our country. So we're going to walk step by step how a bill becomes a law. So our first step, every law starts off just with an idea, and anyone can have an idea for a law. It can just come from regular people, it can come from the president, it can come from people in Congress, it doesn't matter. But if you are a regular citizen and you have an idea for a bill or a law, then you have to contact your representative or your senator and let them know your idea. And then if the representative or senator thinks that's a good idea, then they have to write that bill. So they write it all out, proposing what this new law should say. And then the second step is they introduce the bill to Congress. So this can happen in either the House or the Senate, depending on the person who sponsors the bill or the person that wrote the bill. So if it was a House member, then it would start out in the House. If it was a senator, it would start out in the Senate. And again, if it is a bill dealing with revenue, it has to start out in the Senate. So the bill would be introduced. Then the third step is the bill goes to a committee. And a committee is just a smaller group of people in Congress, and they do more research about the issue that is in the bill. They talk about the bill, they debate the bill, and they make changes to the bill. And then in that small group committee, they vote on it before it goes to the whole House or the whole Senate, depending on where it's starting out at. Then, step 4, Congress debates and votes on the bill. So again, if a bill is approved on one side of Congress where it started out, it then has to go to the other side and go through the same process. So if a bill started out in the House and they debated it and they voted on it and there was a 2/3 majority and they're going to pass it, it's not done yet. It now has to go to the Senate and go through the same process, and vice versa. So then let's say a bill has passed both houses of Congress. Then presidential action happens. So the president can either sign, veto, or really take no action on a bill. So if the president signs the bill, it turns it into a law. It's official. It's now going to govern our country. The president can also veto or reject the law and send it back to Congress with revisions that he or she wants to see made. As you guys know from our simulation, Congress can override that veto if they have a 2/3 majority, or they can make those changes and try to get the bill signed into law. The president can take no action, which, if this is the case, then within 10 days of taking no action, the bill would automatically become a law. Or the president can do what's called a pocket veto, which basically is when the president takes no action, but Congress has ended its session, so they're no longer meeting. So after 10 days, the bill will not become a law, if that's what happens. So several different things that can happen in order for that bill to finally take that last push to become a law. So here, if you want to pause the screen here, you can take a look a little bit more at this graphic organizer. I think it does a really good job of breaking down exactly how a bill becomes a law and kind of gives you some visuals of how it happens. And I know it's a lot, but where you're taking notes on it right now, this is introductory, and you're going to become more familiar with it as we go on. So that's it.